We're back for the HoosierIllustrated.com post-game wrap-up. Indiana basketball just earned a massive, massive win on the road at Penn State, 77-71, in spite of Malik Renew's absence. It's your favorite HoosierIllustrated.com staff members, Drew and Kyler. Don't, Alec, John, Dylan, I'm sorry if you see this, but, I got to say it, Kyler.
The A team is here.
Yeah.
Is here. But speaking of an A team, Indiana played like an A team today. What a win, man. That's a big win. And you start off with the first half and the battle. It was just first of all, I just want to say before I dive deep into Indiana, that was a really good game by both teams. Really, really good game. Probably one of the best college basketball games I've seen all year because there was a lot of fight in that game by both teams, both really, really good teams. But it starts with the first half. The defense of Indiana came in clutch in a lot of ways. I think that set the tone for what the outcome ended up being. It's just because Indiana set the tone on defense, which we haven't seen a whole lot this year. And they bought in on that end. And then you throw in the fact that, Oumar Ballo had an amazing night. No Malik Renew. Again, he's still out with his knee injury that's going on right now. Doesn't expect to be long-term, but, for the meantime, Oumar Ballo stepped up these last two games. Tonight, 25 points, 13 rebounds. I think he had 3 assists as well. So, really, really strong performance by him. And then the second half obviously starts and Mackenzie Mgbako 8 points right off the bat in 6 seconds. Right off the bat. Set the tone there. Indiana built a strong lead. I think it got up to 16 at one point, if I can remember correctly, maybe 15, 16. But, Penn State's a really, really good team. You didn't expect them to get blown out. They were going to fight back. They got it within 2 or 3 at one point, down the stretch. And Indiana just made the winning plays. Miles Rice, I thought, had a really, really good game. Not really a box score type of game where the stats really jump out, but he just kind of changes the game. And, they caused pressure on Penn State's guards, to make plays. Penn State free ball very well. They scored mostly in the paint. But, if you just look at the overall win here, it's Indiana's best win of the season on the road. It's their first quad one win of the season. And you just got to give a lot of credit to how Indiana was coached today, what they bought into, the players that stepped up. Honestly, man, it's just a really, really good win.
Yeah, I mean, it's easily the best win of the year. It's a quad one win for sure. I think Penn State is in the round 40 in net rankings, and it's top 75 for a road win. So earning that quad one win, this is one of those wins that, come March when you're looking at trying to get into the NCAA tournament, this is a huge game. But Miles Rice, I want to talk about him a little bit. You brought it up. If you look at the box score, you're like, 2 for 9 from the field. You watch the game, his ball pressure on defense was really good. He was controlling the pace of play. And when Miles Rice was in the game, Indiana had really no issues breaking the Penn State press. It was when he was out of the game, we kind of saw the Penn State press start to settle in and force some turnovers and some bad possessions. He had one really bad turnover late in the game, the 10-second violation. Other than that, though, I really thought Rice played well. He didn't shoot the ball well particularly, but he made the right plays and made some winning plays. And I know he only had 4 assists. He probably should have had 7 or 8. He created a lot of really good, high-quality looks for Indiana. And the offense was really flowing, especially early in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you look at Oumar Ballo and then obviously Mackenzie Mgbako second half surge, but I think Miles Rice is the guy that set the tone for this game. Just by the ways that you just mentioned, on-ball defense, the diving for loose balls. I mean, these last 5 games of Miles Rice, 4 or 5 games, yes, he's been scoring the ball, he's been creating, but he's playing like the point guard that Indiana needed. And that's exactly what they need because, this team's going to go as far as Miles Rice can take them. And he's being, yes, that 10-second violation was very head scratching. He was a little bit too cool in that type of sense, a little bit too lackadaisical, as the game was getting tight. But if he plays consistently like that, making plays for himself, opening up the offense, Indiana's a really, really dangerous team. And that proved tonight. And obviously when he was off the floor, Penn State attacked. Cannon Carlisle didn't really have the best of game, off the bench, but they attacked. And then when Miles Rice came in the game, the whole entire trajectory of what Indiana could do in that game just completely changed with Miles Rice, on the floor.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about him earlier, Oumar Ballo. Oumar Ballo, it seems like he kind of, whatever it was, they said injury, but it seemed more like a suspension for Ballo for some off-the-court stuff. Not going to get into that, but whatever happened and missing the Winthrop game, it seems to have kind of lit a fire under him. And you look at the last 2 games, he's been Indiana's best player, and it hasn't been close. dominating the glass. And you look at the difference between Indiana. We talked about it last year. You had a Khalil Ware who could rebound the ball, but the rest of the team really wasn't rebounding around him. Ballo's leading this team into becoming a very good rebounding team. That's 2 games in a row against Big Ten competition. We've seen them dominate the glass. I want to say 13 offensive rebounds as a team, led to 17 second chance points. Those are things that change games. And consistently, Ballo was winning on the offensive glass, forcing tip outs, leading to good looks for shooters. And speaking one of those shooters, Luke Goody had 5 offensive rebounds in this game. Quietly was one of Indiana's best players today. Really good game, 4 for 7 from the field, hit 3 threes, 12 points, but 7 rebounds with 5 offensive, no turnovers, 2 steals. Goody played some good defense, but Goody stepping up into more of a rebounding role and like really fighting on the glass, especially with Malik Renew out and Goody into that starting 5. Indiana needs that from Luke Goody, and his veteran experience is starting to really show.
Yeah, and honestly, we'll touch on this. It's just rebounding, right? When rebounding wins games in a lot of ways, and Indiana's going to miss some shots. So they're going to miss some shots. They're not obviously they shot the 3 ball very well today, 9 of 23, but they're not going to be. I'm kind of hedging a little bit. They're not going to be a really, really good 3-point shooting team every single game, right? If they're not going to be that, they got to be able to rebound the ball. And Oumar Ballo, Luke Goody, those guys are doing that. I think with Luke Goody, I think one of the more underrated skills that he has was his rebounding ability, because he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he goes in there and he battles and he just makes a lot of smart plays. And Oumar Ballo today just really feasted in a lot of ways, getting rebounds, especially on the offensive end, getting those easy putbacks, and having that ability to where Indiana can stretch the floor out with only one big on the floor. It just opens up things for Oumar Ballo. And then what I really like on the offensive end, Indiana did a really good job of just feeding Oumar Ballo almost every single play. And that's what you got to do when you have a guy like Oumar Ballo. It's kind of similar how it was with Trace Jackson Davis. He's got to touch the ball at least one time in possession, because they're going to clog that lane. They're going to bring 3 or 4 guys at Oumar Ballo because he's such a dominant force down there. That's going to open up so much more of the offense for Indiana, like we saw today. And that was able to get Luke Goody, he was able to get Mackenzie Mgbako, those types of guys getting their 3-point shot going just because of Oumar's presence on the floor. And then on the defensive end, it's the fact that Oumar Ballo was just changing shots. Penn State did a really good job of getting to the basket. Obviously, they didn't shoot the ball very, very well, but they did a really good job on the straight line drives. Still one of Indiana's more weaker parts of their defense. And Oumar Ballo was there to just change every single shot, it seemed like, challenges them. So you really got to give credit for Oumar Ballo. Like you said, whatever that suspension was, why he ever missed, it was an injury, whatever, it has woken him up. And this is the type of Oumar Ballo that Indiana needs. To have a guy like Oumar Ballo, especially in the Big Ten, that's a major, major advantage when you're going up against any team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about on offense getting him touches. I want to talk about Ballo in the pick and roll today as a roller. Was one of the best things I've seen him do all year. Penn State was mixing it up. They were throwing different looks at Indiana guards. Sometimes there was a hard hedge into a double. Other times they were playing a little bit of drop. And Ballo did such a good job of recognizing, hey, the hedge is coming. I'm going to slip this. Led to a ton of open dunks and layups for him. And then other times, Penn State kind of had the drop coverage a little more soft, and Ballo made sure to hit the guy on the screen. And it's one of those things, it's a really small detail, but it makes such a difference in creating open looks. You see, especially, I know Miles Rice did not shoot the ball today, but one of Miles Rice's best skills is his ability to just make a pull-up jumper. And if a team is going to play drop coverage, Ballo has to hit the guy on the screen, and that's going to open up room for Rice to get into that one dribble pull-up. But then when they hedge hard, like Penn State did so often today, Ballo had the wherewithal to understand, hey, I don't need to actually hit the guy on the screen here. I'm just going to slip for a layup. And it was open so often today.
Yeah, with his size, how sneaky he is on those slips, that's kind of funny to watch. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more you can talk about Oumar Ballo. I do want to mention, I want to talk a little bit about Mackenzie Mgbako, because Mackenzie Mgbako, man, this is the type of production you need. It was a quiet first half for him. Didn't do a whole lot, and then he set the tone for the second half, man.
Yep.
When you score 8 straight points right off the bat, and set that tone where the Indiana could extend the lead and put Penn State's backs up against the wall. When Mackenzie Mgbako's playing like this, and I feel like we talked about this before on our podcast or anything like that, like when Mackenzie Mgbako's playing like this, it just changes everything for Indiana. He's the best player on the floor. Indiana is a really, really, really good team. And when he's hitting shots and he's doing things with confidence, and I thought he was also, driving to the rim very, very well today. The defense was pretty solid for the most part. And he was making tough shots. He was making those type of Carmelo Anthony type of tough, turnaround jumpers, especially on that baseline. And, he's the one guy that, when Indiana was only up 2, he got fouled on that really tough jumper.
Yeah.
Went up to the free throw line, and obviously he's a very he's got a very stone cold face. He didn't show any emotion or anything, and he goes in there and he just knocks down those free throws, man. And honestly, if it wasn't for Mackenzie Mgbako in that second half, Indiana probably doesn't win this game. So you got to give a lot of credit for him, and you're just hoping with Mackenzie Mgbako, it's consistency, right? You're hoping that just builds on to the next game and he doesn't disappear. Because Indiana does struggle when he does disappear, but today you got to give major credit to the sophomore.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about that play where he drew the foul late in the game. Indiana's offense was struggling; all momentum had gone Penn State's way. They needed something, and he really got thrown a grenade. I think it was Miles Rice was trying to make a play, couldn't really get anything going, and Mgbako catches a late shot clock, and maybe it wasn't the best look trying to hit that fade, like that tough fadeaway, but he'd been hitting shots. And because he had been hitting some tough shots earlier in the half, I forget who the Penn State defender was. It might have been Kern, was forced to really defend him a lot tighter because of the fear of Mgbako, and he was able to draw the foul, draw contact. And that's like the next step in his development. Today we saw the good and the bad with Mgbako. There was a lot more good, but putting the ball on the floor, he struggled with 5 turnovers today. That's just the one thing Mgbako really needs to get that handle a little tighter or do a better job of using his body to protect the ball, because he's big and strong. He's not the quickest guy, but make defenders go through you to get the ball. Like you mentioned, Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was never the fastest guy on the court, but what he was so good about is using his broad shoulders and like just his strength to keep defenders kind of where he wanted them on his body, so they really couldn't go get the ball without going through him. And we kind of saw that on that last play. And Mgbako really used his shoulders well to create space. And ultimately, the only way you're going to contest that jumper was fouling, which they did. And you mentioned it. He's ice cold to the free throw line. Even as a freshman, he was ice cold as a free throw line.
Yeah. No, it's just with him, it's consistency, right? Yeah. It's just all about consistency. And you want to see next game. I think they got USC next.
Yep, Wednesday.
So you want to see that build off of that, because it's just – I guess I'll just kind of be harsh. It's kind of getting a little old, with him, showing up one game and not, the next game, because this Indiana team just gets so much better with him, as that, develops. But it's just confidence with Mackenzie too. I did feel like there was one play where Robbie Hummel even said something where he kind of hesitated to shoot, and then he kind of went off to the side and shot a really contested jumper. Yeah. It's just, no one to shoot the ball like, in the first time, trust your shot, trust your confidence, and then everything opens up on that end. But like, man, overall, I mean, today, it's just a really good win. It's a tough win. Indiana showed effort, and it just goes to show you that, the season wasn't over, in the Bahamas. It wasn't over in the non-conference. Indiana right now, they're staring at a really big possibility of starting off, the year 4-1 in Big Ten if they can beat USC on Wednesday at home. And, getting wins like this on the road in a tough environment like the Palestra is, getting wins on the road, this is what wins you the conference. This is what wins you the Big Ten. Obviously, there's still a whole lot of more games to be played, but this is a good start for Indiana. It shows that Indiana can go on the road, beat a really good team, and match up with pretty much anybody in the country.
Yeah, I mean, if you handle business, you should beat USC. USC has not been shown to be very good this year. If you can beat USC and then you go on the road at Iowa, who Iowa's been pretty inconsistent this year.
A little streaky.
If you can go in and beat those 2 teams, and I think now you're 5-1 to start the Big Ten, if I'm not mistaken.
That would be it. Yeah.
Like Indiana, the thing is, they're playing their best basketball right now, and that's something you want to see. And I got to bring it up because it's, the elephant in the room. Their last 2, Kyle, would you agree the last 2 games have been the best 2 performances of the season?
Absolutely, 100%. Just everything you've seen on the floor, defensive wise, player wise, and I would coaching wise as well. I think by far it's their best 2 games. And
Malik Renew's been out, and it's nothing to do with Malik Renew. Malik Renew is an unbelievably talented, really, really good player. It's just the fit. We're seeing Indiana play with more spacing, and it's opened stuff up. And I think if Ballo was out, it'd be a very similar result. I don't know if the rebounding would be as dominant, because Renu's not the Renu's a lot more skilled and less physically gifted than Ballo. So it's one of those things. I think once Renu gets back, I think we're going to see a lot more of single big lineups where we'll see Mgbako or Ballo and Renu on the floor together. But I hope, and I think a lot of people hope, not as much as it was before.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, here's the thing too. It's like I felt like Mike Woodson did a pretty good job with the rotations this year so far. He hasn't really forced too much of both Ballo and Renew on the floor, but it could be a little bit better, a little bit more shrunk. And I think it will be because Indiana's definitely found something. And I don't want to create any sort of narrative because Malik Renew, you can make a strong argument that he's the best player on this Indiana team. But just the things that he does, he is the leading scorer on this team. And I don't want to create a narrative that Indiana's better with Malik Renew. That's not the case at all. Like you said, if Oumar Ballo was out or whatever, you'd probably have similar result on the floor except for the rebounding and things like that because Malik Renew can get buckets down low. But it will be interesting because when he does get back, figuring out what the fit is and how we're going to, maneuver that and stuff. I do think that Langdon Hatton's minutes will take another hit. In a way, but obviously he's really good in that role of break glass in case of emergency. But you got to celebrate this win. You got to celebrate it right now. Hopefully Indiana gets back safe because of the snowstorm. But you gotta get ready for USC.
Yeah,
real good chance to be in 4-1, and that's you go on the road, and if you can beat Iowa, that's really really big, and that puts you in position to compete for a Big Ten championship.
Yeah, and the last thing before we wrap up, I want to talk about the 3-point shooting. 9 for 23, another good performance from three. I know, 39%, it's nothing great, but if you're able to consistently do that and have those games, where you hit 50%, but if you're consistently around the high 30s, low 40s, in Indiana, you're going to get a lot of looks. You mentioned Mgbako had a play, he passed up an open three for a tough jumper, and it seems like Indiana, with, I guess, the exception of that play, is really willing to shoot the three ball. Luke Goody, he's never hesitating, which is, you never want Luke Goody hesitating. When he's open on the three, it's a good look. And Mgbako, the hesitation, there was a couple of plays, but for the most part, shooting with confidence. And those two guys.
And even Trey Galloway, I'll throw him as well.
He didn't have his best shooting game, but Galloway shooting with confidence too. And with Mgbako and Goody today, they combined for 13 attempts. I'd even want it more. I think between the two of them, I think they should each be taking at least 5-6 threes a game. They did that today. Goody took 5, for Mgbako took 8. But if you have both of those guys taking, 6 threes a game, and you take 20, 22 as a team, and they're combining for more than half of your looks, I think you're in a good spot 3-point shooting wise, because teams have to guard him. And we've seen it. It opens up so much space for Ballo. And the thing with Oumar Ballo is he is so big and so physically dominating. I don't want to say it's like Zach Edey because it's not, but it's a different type of physicality. It's more like a Kofi Coburn kind of,
I would say
where
so.
You just don't really have many guys in the country who are able to match up one-on-one with that physicality for 40 minutes. And we saw it. Puts guys in foul trouble. He buries you and he forces doubles. And if Indiana's able to make the open threes that come with those doubles, this team goes from, maybe they can get into the tournament to this team is someone that could be a real issue moving forward.
I guess that kind of, the 3-point shooting, that kind of kills the narrative that Mike Woodson doesn't want to shoot the 3 ball because, that they're shooting at a high volume, and Mike Woodson has been right. It's just all about making them right. And that's what Indiana's doing these last 2 games, making the 3 ball. If Indiana continue this type of volume and, hitting at least 9 threes, somewhere around the high 30s, low 40s or whatever, and then continuing to be a post-dominant team, it makes them just at a whole new level, man. And it's just something that most teams in the country don't have consistently.
Yeah, I think Woodson's definitely kind of adjusted a little bit. I think especially beginning of the year, guys were hesitant to shoot the 3 ball. And, in the past, even guys were really hesitant to shoot the 3 ball. The only player, since Woodson has taken over that I can really remember that never was hesitating from 3 was Miller Kopp.
Yeah, and even he had his hesitations as well at times because also you had someone like Trace Jackson Davis who it was Trace Jackson Davis.
I think Woodson has kind of gotten to the coaching point where he has realized you need to shoot the 3 ball to compete in this game. You can't take 10 threes a game and even if you make 5 of those 10, getting outshot from 3, it's a math game. In Penn State today, we talked about the rebounding, but Indiana made 6 more threes. How many times have we seen versus Indiana make more threes than their opponent, under Woodson? That's a big change. Yeah, I think they took more threes too. And it's not.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not about taking threes. It's not, oh, we need to take this many. It's taking good threes, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing them, the best 3-point looks come in one of two ways. It comes off a paint touch or off an offensive rebound, and Indiana is generating a lot of open threes, whether like today it was a lot of baseline drives, which led to some good threes, or the offensive rebound tip outs. Those are the best looks we can get from three, and Indiana's starting to generate them more, and they're starting to make them.
Yep. I mean, Indiana's putting a complete performance right now. They're starting to become a more complete team, and they're winning these big games. And looking at their schedule, they have a real strong chance to get some really good quality wins coming up. And, it starts next week. USC, take care of business at home, and then see what you can do, at Iowa. It's just, they'll be a tough team, but it's not a team that should scare you if you're Indiana. It should be a team that you match up pretty well and can exploit a little bit. So, got a really, really good win today.
Mm-hmm.
Really good win, and can't emphasize that enough. It's going to look really good on the NCAA tournament resume, at the end of the year, because the road win in the Big Ten against a good team like Penn State, you'll take that every single time. But congratulations on Indiana getting that win today.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop here. You got to keep going, and we'll see what happens on Wednesday.
Yeah, not just any road win too, at the Palestra, which is even harder place to play.
Yeah, that's still cool. That was also a really cool setting. And I will say, credit to Hoosier Nation. It looks like they showed out today.
Yeah.
They made the trip. And, in this giant snowstorm that we got going on, they made the trip out there. And, I would say it was probably like 60-40 Penn State fans there. And there was a lot of, there's a lot of red in the stands. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and we're gonna have all the coverage you guys want, all the fans who are there, all the fans who missed the game because they're at the Colts game, maybe watching football, watching this later. We got you covered. HoosierIllustrated.com. We'll have the live blog of exactly what happened during the game, instant recap, key takeaways, plus anything Indiana football, including the big transfer portal. Indiana landed a big wide receiver from Michigan yesterday. I think Tyler Morse. We had Mendoza highlights, anything Indiana basketball, football, women's basketball, all of it. We got you covered. HoosierIllustrated.com. Make sure you're checking out the site. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in to the Indiana basketball postgame wrap-up show presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. We'll be back on Wednesday.